Need more energy throughout the day? Looking for a kick to your workout? RockinThatIDLife.com has you covered with delicious flavors you've grown to love in tropical fruit and mixed berry, but now fall in love with the new fruit punch and orange flavors. Try them all at RockinThatIDLife.com.
Realtor Mike Burgoyne with Real Brokerage LLC makes the moving process easier. Work with a realtor who plays and studies the game and will work as hard as the boys on the ice to get you the best deal. Check out Mike on the web at strikewithmike.com and jumpstart your move today. That's strikewithmike.com.
Welcome to episode 19 of season 12. This is episode number 428 all time of the often imitated, never duplicated. What do you think this is? A Holiday Inn? We're the original St. Louis Blues hockey podcast, Let's Go Blues Radio. Special thanks to our sponsors, RockinThatIDLife.com, StrikeWithMike.com, and CenterIceBrewery.com for proudly sponsoring the show. Please check them out. Also, don't forget to check out our t-shirt shop at Let'sGoBlues.com for some well-designed and fairly priced Blues-themed t-shirts. It's Wednesday, September 13th, but you're watching this probably on Thursday, September 14th. We're streaming live to tape on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. To interact with the show on social media, our handle on all social channels is at LGB Radio. Just search for us and you'll find us. And if you haven't done or already done so, please like, follow, subscribe, ring the bell, buy a t-shirt from our shop, write an article on thehockeywriters.com about how awesome this show is, or do whatever you can do to help us out. That was a little thing for our co-host, which we'll get to in a minute. I'm your host, Jeff Ponder, and I'm joined by a special guest for tonight's show. We'll get to him in a second. Kurt Price, Bill Day, and producer Austin are all sitting out tonight while we review the allegations against them. The agenda for tonight includes Blues injury news before training camp has even kicked off, and we'll reveal the final 3 spots of the Let's Go Blues Radio all-time team. All that and more on this death-defying episode of Let's Go Blues Radio. So to kick it off here, we're going to get started with talking about our co-host for the evening, Mr. Mike Meyer. We had him on as a guest earlier in the summer, but he is here to co-host with me tonight. You can follow him on Twitter at M_Meyer. That's MEYER3. He works for thehockeywriters.com. Mike, thank you very much for coming on and co-hosting and talking about this exciting episode of Let's Go Blues Radio.
Always happy to be able to jump on. And thanks for for the content ideas here in the very beginning. Let's be able to get an interview here going to Let's Go Blues guys.
There you go. Yeah. Former the Hockey Writers writer.com myself. So yeah, I used to love working for the Hockey Writers. Great people over there, great content over there, not just for Blues, but anybody who's really, to me, the thing that stands out for the hockeywriters.com. Excellent prospect articles come out of there. Some of the best you'll read online, especially for free as well. But just overall hockey content coming from the hockeywriters.com. Anything that's going on news-wise, opinion-wise, commentary-wise, great stuff over there. And, of course, Mike Meyer included as that. And then Stephen Ground from Two Guys One Cup, our friend, he's still over there, correct?
Oh, yeah. He's still over there. He's all over the place here right now. So you'll be able to find him not just doing Blues content, but, just covering NHL content here just in general. So great guy.
Yeah, well, okay, guy. Let's pump the brakes a little bit.
Lower the bar here just a little bit here.
Definitely lower the bar. Come on, Mike. Especially, come on, you're Let's Go Blues Radio. That's all we do is lower the bar.
That's very true. Yep. Yeah.
So if people were to go check out thehockeywriters.com right now and go over to the Blues section, from you specifically, what are they going to see, Mike?
Well, as we were saying, actually, just before we hit the old record button, but I'm starting to go through the Central Division from the Blues point of view and analyze here all the teams that the Blues will be facing. We just released the Chicago Blackhawks preview, and just for to see their offseason ads, their dismissals here, if you want to be able to call that, their purging, and of course, their I don't want to say an acquisition, but basically an acquisition here of Connor Bedard. And how that's just going to affect the Blues here this season. So you can be able to take a look here just at those articles, be able to keep paying attention because I'm going to keep breaking down every single one of the Central Division opponents.
Who's this Connor Bedard? You said goalie, defenseman. What is he? I've never heard of him.
He's a rough. I think he's a left shot defenseman. Coming up
Okay, all right,
like sixth,
that's
seventh overall
interesting.
guy. Yeah,
Okay,
he should be working his way up here. Maybe like a 20-point guy. Real
okay.
flashy. Real flashy.
Oh, okay, very cool. All right, so
Yeah.
like let's see, like a Jeff Finley type, somewhere in there.
He
Maybe not
reminds
that
me.
good.
Yeah, he reminds me more of like a Fulton Reed here more than anything.
There we go. All right. So he could blow goalies into the net.
That's
All right,
exactly it. Yes.
all right. I hope our crowd knows that we are completely messing with you, and that is not at all what we think. Connor Bedard obviously will have a huge impact on the Central Division, so that'll be interesting. Definitely read up when Mike wrote over there about Connor and the rest of the Chicago Blackhawks, and you've got rest of the Central Division coming up as well, correct?
They're all teed up here right now. Yep. So I got to be able to get on it and put the summertime snooze, kind of back into fourth gear here right now as we start gearing up here for training camp and full season.
So let me just go ahead and get your and predictions mean nothing on this show. We always say like predictions are just kind of what we have to do in the industry we're in. I hate predictions because I feel like you really don't know what's going to happen in the span of a
Right.
season. But who do you think takes the Central Division here in 2023-24?
It's so wide open. I mean, I think the easiest one to be able to say is going to be the Avalanche. If the Wild can get things figured out here again, I still think when you got a guy here like Kirill Kaprizov, I don't think you can ever be able to count them out.
Yeah,
They've made some adjustments here right now, and I think they could be still a sneaky team to be able to end up taking the division.
very cool. I will look
Also,
forward to.
obviously,
Oh,
don't
go ahead.
count the Dallas Stars here as well. All of their offseason acquisitions. So
Yeah,
it's gonna be tight.
that's my dark horse pick is the Dallas Stars. I could see them
Yes.
sneaking in and getting that number one. Now, we all know they have first year success with their head coach back there. What am I driving? Peter DeBoer.
Yes.
Always a first year success coach. He had some success last year. We'll see if that'll translate to a second year. But yeah, that's my dark horse pick. I love their roster. Love as in as a hockey analyst, love their roster.
Yes.
But yeah, should be interesting to see where they go. Definitely some solid, really solid all around. I think and then Minnesota, as you said, clearly. But what about Arizona? You never know. Jason Zucker could have a big year. We'll see.
Clayton Keller, baby. Oh,
Right,
absolutely.
right.
Actually, I've got them pegged as a wild card favorite. They could be able to sneak themselves into the playoffs here just past the Blues. So
I
I do not count them out.
I don't hate what they've done in Arizona, to be quite honest, with the roster
Yeah.
this summer, and then even going into what they had last year. That rookie they had, I always forget his name. The forward who was up for Calder.
Oh, you're gonna
Mi-
put me here on the
I
spot.
know I'm putting you on the spot because I'm putting myself on the spot. He's a hell of a hockey player, even though I don't know his damn name. But yeah, I love what they're doing in Arizona, and I agree with you. Don't count them out. I don't think they'll be in the wild card, but I could see them
Yeah.
battling for it for sure.
Yeah. Machielli or Hayton.
Machielli and
Yeah.
Barrett Hayden. I love his game too.
Yep.
Big boy center. Love the way he plays. So he's
Yeah.
definitely another one that I'd watch out for as well. Well, we've got some actual, and hey, you know what? We joke over the summer. There's never any hockey news. Guess what, guys? It's not the best news. It's not what we wanted to hear, but there is hockey news to talk about right now. Blues news to talk about right now. Actual news that could impact the season. That is the good news about where we're at right now because we are very close. We are on the fringe of the NHL season starting. So the news that came out recently, guys, everybody listening, we all know the grass is green. We all know the sky is blue. We all know Torrey Krug is injured because that's just what happens. Torrey Krug has been reportedly sidelined for the start of training camp. He sustained a right foot injury while training. He will be reevaluated on October 1st. So that is well into preseason. He's 32 years old, entering his fourth season with the St. Louis Blues. He was injured last year for 19 games, lower and upper body injuries. And we all remember the injury he had in the playoffs 2 years ago. And then, of course, it's important to note that this was the season coming after he reportedly waived his no trade clause, and he is now injured to at least start preseason. We'll see what it's like October 12th when that comes around, when the Blues kick off the season. But doesn't sound good for the St. Louis Blues. Doesn't sound good for Torrey Krug. Mike, let me ask you about your surprise level with with this injury.
I was definitely. I mean, you're always caught off guard when any sort of player is injured, especially before training camp.
Right.
You had shades of memory, I think, with Eric Johnson.
Yep.
And so I'm not overly shocked when they said that he's going to be out approximately 3 weeks. It's not a huge shocker here to me. It seems like it's a very minimal injury here for him. So um, it sucks that he's going to end up missing training camp. It sucks that he's going to miss some preseason. That he may end up being injured here for the start here of the season. You never know. But like with a veteran guy here like Krug, it, you know, keep it going, and he'll return here just fine.
Yep. Yeah, and the positives that we like to find as hockey reporters, analysts, and fans is, well, he's getting his injury out of the way now. Maybe that means he'll be fine when he comes back. Maybe we don't have the news on this. We don't know. Maybe this is something that's been nagging him over the summer. Maybe it was
Right.
something small happened that made him tweak it and said, you know what, I need to just take it easy. I'm going to miss training camp. And maybe he comes back feeling great by the time he's back, whatever that is, mid-October, even start of the season, who knows? But yeah, I mean, part of the positive here is that maybe, again, it was something that was nagging him, and then it finally just said, okay, I'm shutting her down. And that way
Right.
he didn't go into the season with something nagging him.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. The games that he misses are not going to be like they're not impactful games. And the good news is that you have plenty of defensive depth that can be able to take his spots. A
Right.
guy like even just Marco Scandella can be able to take his role. Even just to like hit some of his ice time. But this is going to give a really good opportunity, especially to Scott Perunovich.
Yes.
Lord willing, as long as he stays healthy here as well, I think every single fan was like, seeing injury and like, oh crap, it's going to be Perunovich here again. But as long as he can be able to stay healthy here as well, you're going to see a battle, I think, all season long between the two of them as far as who's going to command the ice time and who's going to command the power play time.
Yeah, and that was my first thought too. Is I thought, this is going to be the year that we were all kind of hoping that maybe Perunovich takes that next step, and then even
Mhm.
maybe usurps Krug on that first power play unit.
Right.
And now he's really going to have that opportunity. It's going to be really okay, Scott. Show us what you can do in training camp, not just
Right.
throughout the season. So it'll be interesting to see how he steps in, how he reacts to this. Let's hope he doesn't get injured. But
Yes.
but still, it's exciting to see. Again, this is a team. Maybe we're talking about wild card, maybe third. I don't know. I'm not in that boat with other people. I think this is a year the Blues miss the playoffs. If it's going to happen, I'm okay with it being this year. Let Perunovich step in right away and see what he can do. My biggest worry with this for Torrey Krug is, yes, again, we talked about how it's training camp. It's not middle of the season. He's not missing games down the stretch in playoff run or whatever it would be. My only worry is I look at it and I say, we've got a new defensive coach, likely a whole new structure coming in. Torrey Krug is he's going to be there. He's going to be in the video room. He's going to be
Right.
learning anything Mike Weber has to teach him. But my only worry is he's not going to be on the ice learning this new system. He's going to have to watch from the bench, from the stands, whatever, and watch it, and then step in and be able to play this new role mid-season, early in the season. We'll see if that has any impact on them. These are professional athletes. Clearly, they've been through stuff like this before. When they have a new coach mid-season, that happens. I think he'll be fine, but that's the only slight concern I really have about him possibly missing any training camp.
Yeah, I think there's something definitely to be, to your point about the practice time. The actual prep up, the ramp up period here to the games that actually start mattering. When you are inserted here right off the get-go into games here that matter, actually go towards the standings, towards points here. There's something to be said about missing that time. we see it in baseball here as well about guys who, they miss spring training, whatever that it might end up being. And then they're like, oh, you're a little bit slow to kind of get up to pace. Now, again, the good news is that they've got plenty of depth. And so Berube has the ability to, even if you just wanted to go 11-7 for the first couple of games that Krug is back, that he can limit down Krug's ice time and still be able to throw out plenty of capable defensemen who can be able to jump up here into the play and then back here in their own zone, and I think still be very comfortable.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we are here with Mike Meyer, and we'll be talking about the upcoming all-time team. There are 3 spots available for the extra skaters, so we'll be getting to that here in a minute. But first, we're going to take a quick commercial break to hear from our fantastic Spice sponsors. You are listening to Jeff and Mike on Let's Go Blues Radio. Don't touch that dial. Don't go anywhere.
We'll return after these messages.
Every beer league hockey night, I grab my hockey bag and sticks and throw them in the trunk of my car. And the very next thing I do, I mix up a boost of energy courtesy of RockinThatIDLife.com. It's formulated to break up its delivery in 3 ways, which helps me get through all 3 periods of hockey. Phase 1 provides a rapid onset of energy, concentration, alertness, and motivation. By period 2, I'm receiving a dose of sustained energy, increased focus, metabolism, cognitive function, performance, and feelings of well-being, which I need with the way I play. In Phase 3, I'm getting fatigue protection without jitters and crash, an elevated mood, and a reduction of fluid retention to help me make the big play when it counts. This same triphasic approach helps me when I drink it during work hours or simply just for a pick-me-up when I need it. Try one of the 4 energy flavors by visiting RockinThatIDLife.com, but make sure to email Dustin at RockinThatIDLife@gmail.com and tell him Let's Go Blues Radio sent you to receive an additional 10% off your order. That's RockinThatIDLife.com.
Center Ice Brewery is a beer lover's dream for hockey fans. Based in St. Louis, Missouri, owner Steve Albers has been brewing hockey-themed favorites for thirsty sports fans since 2017. From the Beauty IPA to the Old Arena Lager, a cold, frosty, hockey-themed beer is just what the doctor ordered for hockey fans in St. Louis. Make sure to check your local beer store for Center Ice Brewery beer today. LGB. Let's go beer.
During the magical 2019 playoff run, I was in the midst of buying my current home. Every time I spoke with my realtor, obviously, home buying was the discussion. But in the back of my mind, I couldn't stop thinking about what was destined to happen for our St. Louis hockey team. If only there were a realtor who could have walked me through the process, held my hand when needed, but was there to be a sounding board when I wanted to complain about a certain hand pass goal. Let realtor Mike Burgoyne with Real Brokerage be that for you. He'll have your needs top of mind as he skates you through the home buying or selling process, dangling you past any obstacles and assisting on all your home goals. Check out strikewithmike.com for more information or give him a call directly at 314-753-4060. That's Mike Burgoyne with Real Brokerage at strikewithmike.com, and that number again is 314-753-4060. Don't forget to tell Mike that Let's Go Blues Radio sent you.
And now, back to Let's Go Blues Radio, the longest running St. Louis Blues podcast with Price, Ponder, and Day.
Well, I did forget to mention as we were going into break that there is actually a little bit more bit of news that we want to talk about here. The Blues are participating in a prospect showcase. Before I get into that, Mike, there is a discussion on this show about the tournament the Blues are no longer participating in this year, but
yes,
participate in a town in Michigan. What was the name of that town, Mike?
Traverse City.
Traverse. You say Traverse City. Okay.
Yes.
I have always said it incorrectly. I've always said Traverse City.
Traverse. I could see
that. Yeah, and I seriously said it on the show. This is what, our 13th season? I've said it every year the Blues participated. It wasn't until last year, finally, one of the other co-hosts corrected me. And I'm like, guys, I've been saying it like
Just
that.
now.
And they're like, well, yeah, we know. I'm like, we have a blues podcast. Make me say it correctly. So I
Even
still have
off
to
air.
and I'm like, every time I have to like in my head now say it's not Traverse City, it's Traverse City. So yes. All right. Well, good. You say it correctly. I'm not going to call you out then. Good work. So yes, in that realm, again, talking about Blues prospects, the Blues have announced they are not going to be a part of the damn it. I did it. I knew I was going to do it. Traverse City Prospect Tournament. They are actually for 2023 going to be playing in the Tom Kurvers Prospect Showcase from September 15th to the 17th in St. Paul, Minnesota. The showcase is going to feature 3 teams: the Blues, Minnesota Wild, and Chicago Blackhawks. All games are going to be taking place at the it's called the Tria rink, I believe.
Yes. Yeah.
At Trevor Island Center in downtown St. Paul. The Blues will play 2 games, so obviously they'll play each team once, including Friday, September 15th against the Wild, and Saturday, September 16th against the Blackhawks. Both games will be available to stream live on the Blues YouTube channel. If you go over to blues.nhl.com, you can find links for that already, or if you go over to their YouTube channel, you can see it as well. Blues will be practicing on Thursday and Friday at Centene. Man, so they're going to play Friday at Centene, and I guess they're going to travel after practice to go play in that game in Minnesota. Why add in that extra travel?
That's a good question. That I don't get.
Get up there on Friday, come on.
Yeah, and especially when you only have 12 forwards. You
Right.
don't have any extra forwards or anything. Like, why exhaust them for the tournament? I mean,
Yeah,
they're
that
only
seems
playing
silly.
2 games, but
Right.
it doesn't really make sense.
Yep. So anyways, they'll be playing games the 15th and the 16th, as I said. Your prospects are your for the most part, your usual suspects here. We won't go through the list. You can find that over on the Blues website. But a couple names to mention: Nikita Alexandrov will be playing, as well as both Zachary Bolduc and Zach Dean. We've talked about a couple different guys that are just prospects in the Blues system, including Marc-Andre Gaudet, Matthew Kessel, Leo Loof. A couple of those guys. Hunter Skinner also involved as a guy that was acquired in a trade last year. Goaltenders Will Cranley, Colton Ellis, and Vadim Zherenko, all guys we've discussed on this show. Outside of the usual suspects, Mike, is there anybody that kind of stands out to you in terms of people to watch in this prospect tournament?
I am really interested to see how a guy like Tanner Dickinson does. I don't know like where the ceiling is for him. I think if he does make it here, like to the NHL, he's going to be like a bottom 6 guy, but he could surprise you with having, that middle 6 here potential. Quentin Burns and Michael Buchinger, both offensive defensemen. I think both of those guys could have a decent showing. Leo Loof, I'm just interested to see what he's going to be like here on the NHL size rink. I mean, this is a man who is not afraid to throw his body around. And he's gotten better about not being penalized here for some of the hits, the more aggressive style hits that he takes. And so I'll be very interested to see how he actually performs. But the biggest one, I think it's Nikita Alexandrov, just to see how he's going to do amongst all these prospects, because he's played those NHL games. He's played in the AHL, so it's interesting to see where he's going to be at. Is he just going to stand out like, a men among boys kind of deal? So I don't think there's really anybody else like outside of those guys that's really going to be able to stand out, or the ones that you should like put a pin in. Only 2 games. I don't know how hard they're going to truly go, but we'll see.
Yeah, there's no championship. There's no playoff. There's nothing like that. There's
Right.
only teams, so they're not going to do anything like that. It's just a very much a friendly scrimmage. We say friendly. It's hockey. We all know how hockey can still get heated.
Right.
But still, it is interesting. It's not an actual tournament, not a prospect tournament. It's a prospect showcase. Of course, I do want to add, too, I forgot. I don't think I've been able to say his name yet on Let's Go Blues Radio, so I'm going to take that opportunity now. Defenseman the Blues signed over the summer, Jeremy Biakabatuka. I love that name. I saw them sign him, and I'm like, I don't care if he is the worst defenseman in the history of hockey. I want to see a Blues jersey with that name on it. Biakabatuka. Beautiful
Yes,
name.
and he noticeably stood out during prospect camp.
Yeah.
Noticeably stood out, and so I was very, very happy to see that they signed him. I don't care if they end up again, if he only plays 3 games with the Blues, 1 game with the Blues, I just wanna see him be able to make it to the show.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, so I unfortunately couldn't make prospect camp. My brother went, and he actually messaged me and said, "There's this kid," and he spelled it all terribly, but I had to look him up, and I was like, he's like, this kid is awesome." And I think it was
Yeah,
what, a couple days after prospect camp that they signed him, and he
mhm,
was like, "Told you this kid's great." So I'm like, "Well, I'll keep my eye out for him, and definitely going to watch him in that prospect camp. So we'll see how he does." That's
yep,
this weekend,
absolutely.
by the way.
Yep, absolutely.
Oh. All right, so let's get into some all-time team. Our last reveal, hard to believe. We've been doing this all summer, and started, I think, in April or maybe even May. I don't know when it was. It's been so long since the summer started for the Blues. But yeah, we are on our last reveal tonight. Reminder what we're doing. It's the last 3 skater spots. So these are the guys that basically, if you have your starting lineup voted on by fans, these guys would not be dressed, but they'd be first guys in for injury. So your 13th, 14th, 15th forwards, or your 7th defenseman, 8th defenseman, whatever it would be. That's where these guys are in the rankings. So as a reminder for the 35-year team, they did not name utility players. So we are in new waters here. So there's 3 spots open. And again, this was available to anyone who is a forward, defenseman, or goalie. So we put the poll out, let people vote. Basically, it was based on who had the highest vote totals in the original voting that we did on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. And these are the 4. We had 4 guys that were selected that were basically available for this extra spot. So the top 3 got in, and the last person did not get in, which we will reveal that at the end as well. But our first reveal is somebody that I was shocked personally that did not make this team in the original rounds of it's just, I think that his position, it was just so stacked. And I was just shocked because we talked a lot about recency bias playing into some of these picks. I was surprised that it did not play into this one, but he gets the number 1 spot in utility. Alexander Steen, 2019 Stanley Cup champion Alexander Steen. His greatest season as a Blue came in 2014, 2015, 74 games played, 24 goals, 40 assists, and 64 points. His stats overall with the Blues in his career as a St. Louis Blue, he's number 4 in games played with 765, number 10 in goals at 195, number 6 in assists at 301, number 6 in points at 496, tied for 6th in even strength goals at 144, tied for 6th in shorthanded goals at number 9, number 6 in game-winning goals at 35, and number 6 in shots at 1,863. Mike, I'll pass it off to you. I know you've kind of kept up a little bit with the all-time team that we're doing here, but Alexander Steen is the first non-dressed player on this team. Your thoughts?
I'm glad to see him in. I'm glad to see him in. Huge, huge fan favorite, and like you said, there's so many players, and it's a little bit surprising that he didn't make it. Especially over some guys. I don't know whether or not that you would be able to take a guy, say like Steen over TJ Oshie.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I'm so glad to be able to end up seeing him end up making here this list. You could argue that he is absolutely like a top 10 Blues player here of all time.
Oh, I agree,
So
100%.
yeah,
We talked about we don't know what the rules are for the Blues Hall of Fame. If there's like a certain number of years you have to be retired before they let you in, but he's got to be one of the first guys that's non-retired number that gets into that, right? I mean, that guy had some unbelievable years here in St. Louis, and of course,
yeah.
was part of the biggest team that the Blues have ever put together in 2019.
And even if you don't look at him strictly just based off of statistics, large, large locker room guy, chemistry, glue player. And I would tell you, when Steen took the ice during the prospect camp, that he's going to be a part of the organization here again. I mean, like there was almost a standing ovation for him. the fans went nuts here for him, and it just shows how much that he means to this fan base and to the community here, with the Blues here at large. So I'm super happy to see him here.
Yeah, and that's what surprised me. You talk about because Blues fans do love him. I mean, yes, and
Mhm.
I think maybe we talked about it a little bit on the left wing reveal shows. Maybe that recency bias played against him because there was at the end of his career there was a fairly large portion of the Blues fan base who said, "Oh, he's overpaid. They shouldn't have ever given him that last contract." So we wondered if maybe that played into it a little bit because
Could have.
again, you look at the other guys at left wing. David Perron, listen, huge David Perron fan. I hope he comes back one day and retires a Blue, but I'm sorry, David Perron over Alexander Steen. I cannot agree with that. Keith Kachuk got the number one spot. I think I'd take Alexander Steen over Keith Kachuk.
Mhm.
There's just, and again, but it also is that you can't go wrong at left wing for the Blues. And it wasn't until we did this exercise that I really realized that I'm like, oh my God, the Blues have had some really good left wings over the time that they've been a
Yes.
franchise. Pavel Demitra is a guy who played every position. Brian Sutter, one of the greatest to ever play the game in a Blues jersey. But still, to not have Steen as one of the top four was shocking. But to see him here, and
It
again, like
completes the list.
it
It
does,
just
it
it just
really
completes
does.
the position.
Yep, and and I'll go ahead and say if you have a favorite Alexander Steen memory or moment, please share with us now. But I think we
Yeah.
all share the Jonathan Quick goal,
Yes,
where he
that's
stole the puck
exactly
from him
it.
behind the net, shorthanded. I mean, because that was, and when you just to take you back to that moment, right? It was the Blues got a penalty. Was it Shattenkirk gets a penalty, and it's overtime. It's the
Mhm.
Kings who have been Blues stompers before that game, and it was the Blues are. I believe they'd already won game one, and this was in game two, and it
Mhm.
was okay. They could go up 2-0 in the series here. Power play though, okay, Kings have got this, no question. Power play in overtime. What's this? A gaff behind the net, and Steen puts it in the empty net. I mean, just attacks in the right way. Quick wasn't expecting it, and it was at home, which adds to it too. Just one of my favorite moments as a Blues fan. I've been a fan forever, and that's one
Yeah.
of my favorite moments that I've ever witnessed as a Blues fan.
Yeah. I think that's if you're a fan of Alexander Steen, if that's not top 2 within your mind, I don't know if you've ever watched Alexander Steen play. Like,
Right.
let's be real. But yeah, I mean, you're right. It's roughly 6 minutes here, like left to go here into overtime. They're on a power play. I pulled it up actually here on YouTube just to be able to make sure I got like the stats here right. But I believe it was a double minor because I'm looking here, 3:29 here of power play time.
Yep, that sounds right. I think it
So
was a high stick.
Yep, yep. So it was, I mean, just like you said, the energy here, his reaction, it was the Kings, and we're finally be able to overcome them. And it was just that wave of Blues players just starting to kind of go up and over that hump, and just kind of be able to return back to, okay, these guys are actual Stanley Cup contenders.
Yep.
So it was just a large, huge fan base, or like a good time here, like within the Blues fan base, as I get
Yep.
tongue tied.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And yeah, I mean, and it's not just obviously that moment comes to mind, but there's so many good ones. We've
Yeah.
talked about his willingness to step out of a let's see, top 9 role and go onto that fourth line in the 2019. I mean, that can't
Huge.
be overstated how important that was to this team and how the Blues were able to roll out a fourth line that was just, I'm sorry, the best fourth line in all the playoffs that year. I mean, nobody
Hmm.
matched that line. They were incredible. And then just, his time when he was kind of the go-to guy when Tarasenko was first coming up and when the Blues still had Oshie and Backus, and it was Alexander Steen that was the guy that you always relied to get the shots off. Now, yes, he did not always hit the net. He was kind of known for shooting into shin guards, but he scored a bunch of huge goals for the Blues.
Hmm.
He was always a threat on the ice, and he was a two-way threat. He
Hmm.
always hustled. One of those guys that, I play beer league. I hate those guys that never stop skating. And that's how Alexander Steen is. He never gives up on the play. He's always moving his feet. Just a great work ethic. And I'm sure if you've ever talked to him or met him in person, he is built like a horse, Just he's
Yes.
a small guy, but he's a big guy. And you can
Yes.
just tell that he has got the work ethic you need to be an effective NHL player.
Yep. And that's absolutely the reasons why, again, that he just belongs here on this list. Absolutely.
Yep. Well, the next reveal that we have, also somebody that I'll say that I think Kurt Price, co-host of the show, he really showed that he was upset when this guy didn't make it. He actually thought he should be here over Alexander Steen, which I will argue forever. But still, another left wing, and again, goes to show the power the Blues have had at left wing.
Mhm.
Brendan Shanahan makes this team
Yeah.
as the second alternate skater. One All-Star game as a St. Louis Blue. That was in 1996. He's an 8-time All-Star overall. Member of the Hockey Hall of Fame, inducted in 2013. His best season as a Blue, and actually his best season overall as an NHL player, came in 1993-94. 81 games played, 52 goals, 50 assists, 102 points. That was his only 100-point season in his career. Blues stats, not in there a lot because, as I said, with the knock, I think, against him, why he wasn't one of the original forward left wings to make this team, is that he just wasn't here very long. He is tied for number 6 in shorthanded goals with 9, and he is tied for number 6 in hat tricks as well at 5. He does have a lot of single season success, though. So when you look at the greatest seasons the Blues forwards have ever put together, he is his 1993-94 campaign. That is the 7th most goals a Blue has ever scored in 52. He is number 8 in goals as well with 51 goals in 1992-93. He is tied for the 10th most points in a season by a St. Louis Blue, and that was 102 in 93-94. In even strength goals, he's got the 6th most with 33, and that was in 92-93. In power play goals, 18 he scored in 92-93. That is good for 7th all-time in Blue seasons. And then in shorthanded goals, he had 7 in 93-94. That is the 3rd most in Blues history in one single season. And then in 1993-94, he had 397 shots. That is the 2nd most shots ever. And of course, number 1, Brett Hull, which I think he made out the rest of that list, 1 through 10. Number 2, Brendan Shanahan worked his way in. But still, Brendan Shanahan, just an excellent player, a guy that, you hated when he went to the Red Wings, but as a Blue, you love the hell out of him. He had that work ethic you wanted, and just a bruiser, a guy who beat the hell out of another person on this team, and that's Keith Tkachuk. Just a fierce fighter, fierce competitor, and a hell of a hockey player, guy you do not want to mess with in front of the net. Your thoughts, Mike, on Brendan Shanahan also making this team?
I'm very conflicted. I love seeing him here on this list. I really do. But just to see, again, like, he only played 4 years here with the Blues.
Yeah.
And I say that, I don't say that lightly. I mean, 4 years is a long time to be able to play here with a team. I mean, you think back to, you take 4 years here, most people, 4 years here in college, 4 years here in high school. It feels like you're there for a long time. And the fact that he scored 306 points in 277 regular season games. He was an all-star here for pretty much every single year that he was with the Blues. So I don't take that lightly, but I don't think of Brendan Shanahan Blues and that associate, like, I just don't. And so I love seeing him here because, again, like, that's somebody else that you can just add here to the list, but it's very conflicting.
Yeah.
And absolutely, yes, I think that somebody, there's plenty of other players I think that you could probably have put up there, as just the heart and soul, gritty, absolute Blues players, potentially over a Brendan Shanahan.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll say, again, I think Kurt Price, and again, talking about the panel that we had 11 people on this panel that originally selected players to be voted on by the fans. And one of the things that I made sure to do was include people from all different generations, different walks of life, different career paths. I mean, we have a guy who watched the first Blues game ever in 1967 on this panel. So I wanted to include that. So we all had our different take on,
Mhm.
what this team meant, like
Yeah.
who belongs here. And I think Kurt's idea is impact to the Blues. It doesn't matter how long they were here, how impactful were they when they were here. And I think he
Yeah.
looks at Brendan Shanahan and says, when he was here, he is just as impactful as Brett Hull,
Totally.
Adam Oates, Bernie Federko, Chris Pronger. So I totally get that. But for
Oh,
me,
absolutely.
I'm looking, and if you look at all the votes that I had on this team, mine is more who was a great Blue and lasted as a great Blue for a while. And
Yes.
again, that's why Alexander Steen makes sense to me, because I'm like, he was so good for so long. Shanahan, yes, I think he does belong here. But again, the longevity is just not there for me. So even when I was
Yes.
voting on this team, Brendan Shanahan wasn't top of mind for me. It was Keith Kachuk. It was Brian Sutter. It was Alexander Steen. These names, even David Perron, really, who's been
Yes.
here and for Perron's case, come back multiple times.
Yes.
So I love Shanahan here. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not as adamant that he definitely belongs on this team as some other people were who voted on this whole team.
Yep. Yep. I'm right there with you. And that's just the biggest thing. And I mean, and you could realistically say, okay, well, let's throw Wayne Gretzky here into that list. He was impactful, but he wasn't there forever. So I get both points of view. I'm a little more just conflicted here at that point, just simply because again, he was only here with the Blues for 4 years.
Yep. And I
Impactful,
agree.
but only for 4 years.
And and again, he had some unbelievable moments here. We all remember him with Craig Janney, one of the best 1-2 punches this team's ever had. Let's not talk about what ended that, but yeah, when they were together, it was unbelievable hockey to watch. And you had Brett Hull on that wing. I mean, good Lord, that's one of the best
Yes.
lines ever formed in the NHL. And Brendan Shanahan just, again, tough as knuckles in front of the net, and a guy that really, I mean, wasn't just in front of the net, wasn't a guy like Dave Anderchuk, who was, unbelievable in front of the net, but really didn't have the best hands. Brendan
Right.
Shanahan had great hands. Some of the goals
Yes.
he scored, even for the Red Wings against the Blues, I remember being like, God damn it, Shanahan. And
Hmm.
it's the same here, I'm sure, for other teams at this period when he was with the Blues. Like, that guy has everything. Every part of his game is ferocious and tenacious and incredible. And that's why when he was traded for Chris Pronger, there was such an uproar, because that guy was the whole package. Who the hell
Yes.
is this kid from Hartford? And
Hmm.
luckily, Pronger turned out to be quite a hell of a hockey player himself. But Shanahan, man, he was a fan favorite, and he was great at what he did.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. I don't think I honestly could have said it any better.
Well, I mean, when you do a show for 13 years, you know how to talk. I'm kidding. I am not. Like you said earlier, I had a long day
Lord,
today, and I thought,
yes,
oh boy, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do a show tonight, but we're getting
we
through it,
make it
Mike. We're
work.
doing it.
We make it work. Yeah, for those
So
who
our
work full time here with us. So
oh, it's brutal, man. There's some days where it's just like, I got a show tonight. I just worked a
yes,
10-hour day. You got to be kidding me. But it's what we do. We do it for you, fans. That's why we do it. We want you to read our stuff and listen to us. All right. So our third reveal of the show, will it be another left wing? Because as I said, there was plenty of options here at left wing that didn't make the team. And then, of course, there was a ton of right wings that were left off this list. Joe Mullen, Wayne Babbage, and then defensemen. Barrett Jackman was a guy that was included in the polls here. And we had other guys. Jeff Brown didn't make this team. And then, of course, there's some guys from the 35-year team that didn't make it. Bob Gassoff, Rob Ramage. Is it a goalie, Glenn Hall? It is not. It is a center, and it is number 77 in your
my guy.
programs, number 1 in your hearts. Pierre Turgeon makes this team,
Yes,
and I am
sir.
very happy to.
Yes,
One of my
sir.
favorite players of all time. He will be inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame this November. He was part of the Blues 2000 President's Trophy win. I think after the Stanley Cup, we can celebrate that now, right? Like, even they got knocked out in the first round, but hey, they won a cup 19 years later. So
Yes,
we can celebrate it now. His best season as a Blue came in 2000, 2001, 79 games played, 30 goals, 52 assists, 82 points. His only stat that ranks in the top 10 for Blues all time, he is number 8 in plus minus with a plus 65. You mentioned before the show started that Pierre Turgeon is a guy that you think about maybe with the Islanders, maybe with the Canadiens.
Right.
There's plenty of other teams you can think about with him. Obviously we think Blues because we're Blues fans and cover the Blues. But I would say that I think a lot of teams, especially when the Hall of Fame induction really happens in November, I think you're going to hear a lot of Islanders and Canadiens talk. But he was very impactful here with the St. Louis Blues. After after the years of Janney and Oates and all those guys, Gretzky, it turned to the Pierre Turgeon show at center. And he was great. Scott Young scored 40 goals with Turgeon as his center. That was later in Young's career. I don't want to say later, but I believe he was either 31 or 32. So he was already kind of past his prime, but he put up 40 goals, and largely because Pierre Turgeon was so good at center with him. And again, one of my favorite players of all time. Mike, I know you agree. Pierre Turgeon belongs on this team because, man, he wasn't here again. Maybe like Shanahan, wasn't here super long, but the time he was dynamic and important for this team.
Absolutely. 5 years here in St. Louis. I mean, he tied the exact same amount of years here, at least, that he did in Buffalo. And he actually played more games than what he did in Buffalo. I mean, it was 5 more, 327 games and 355 points, 134 of those here being goals. But you want to talk about an impactful center. I mean, I don't know if you have very many that's all-time centers here above Pierre Turgeon that rank here within the St. Louis Blues franchise history. So I am very happy to see that Pierre ended up making it. Again, a guy who's probably averaging, Hockey Reference says 25 minutes. I mean, let's be real. That's not 25 minutes. He was averaging, he was probably averaging about 19 minutes here per game, which is still extremely good for a guy who was in his late 20s to early 30s that he played here with the Blues. But, again, you want to talk about impactful when he was here. Pierre Turgeon was very impactful when he was here.
He just, I don't want to say he commanded a game. I think that that kind of phrasing goes to like the Chris Prongers, but thinking of center, maybe the Bernie Federkos, maybe even the Adam Oateses. So I won't put him in that elite class, but he is right below it, the very next tier, where it was when Turgeon was on the ice, things were happening. And he wasn't a terrible back checker. He wasn't, Ryan O'Reilly, pulling off ridiculous defensive plays and then carrying the puck down and scoring a goal. But he wasn't, he was no slouch defensively. He was pretty good. And he would always come back and he'd always be leading the breakout. One of the things that I loved, it seemed like whenever Pronger had the puck, it seemed like he was either Dimitra or Turgeon that he was getting the puck to, because they always found ways of getting open, and then they'd score on the breakout because of a great pass from Pronger to Turgeon, then Turgeon to Young or Turgeon to whoever. And just, I mean, to me, in his time here, just so good. And it's funny because you look at, I remember the year he was let go. He walked in free agency to Dallas. That was the year the Blues went out and got Doug Weight. I was pissed. I loved Doug Weight even before he became a Blue, but I'm like, come on, man. Pierre Turgeon's been such an important part of this team. And I always go back to how amazing would it have been if they would have gotten Weight and kept Turgeon.
Yes.
That would have been ridiculous. But let's face it, salary that may not have worked out. But
you find a way to make that work.
Yeah, you do find a way to make it work.
You find a way to make that work. Yeah.
But I think Turgeon, he did dip a little bit when he went to Dallas and then really dipped by the time he went to Colorado. So maybe that was the right time to depart. But I still think a what-if scenario, if you have a 1-2 punch of Weight and Turgeon, first of all, letting go of Turgeon, Scott Young became pretty insignificant. He didn't have that guy setting him up left and right. So really at that time, you kind of lost Young at that point. He became more of a third-line guy, which was kind of where he was before Turgeon too. So, yeah, I would have loved that. That's a what-if scenario, but I'm happy Turgeon's here again. One of my favorite players of all time. He almost made it in the votes for the fourth center. I would have loved that. Loved seeing him there. But, again, I'm glad he's on this team. I think on the 35-year team, the fact that he wasn't included was a travesty. That he belonged there then, and he belongs here now. So I'm happy to see it.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. He is still, I think, still very underrated with this Blues fan base, and especially amongst like some of the younger fans. And so, that you're getting to that age where you're like, go back and rewatch some of the old stuff, and but truly, like, go back and rewatch some of those old games here if you can. Just watch some highlights of him here in St. Louis. If you have the chance to just watch an entire game or two with him in there, try to cherry pick, if he's got some good producing games. But he was lights out, just a phenomenal player to be able to watch. And just I think, and I firmly believe, that he was a reason why so many Blues fans, in those eras, like, were coming, like, they wanted to see Pierre Turgeon.
Oh yeah.
So it was
100%.
Super, super happy to see him here as well.
Yeah, and I'll say, if you want to watch some full games of Pierre Turgeon, his time here in St. Louis, shameless plug, my YouTube channel. If you look me up, there's plenty of full Blues games on there. Not the Let's Go Blues Radio one, the Jeff Ponder YouTube channel. Yeah, there's plenty of awesome games on there from the Turgeon days. I was a nerd, Mike. I recorded so many Blues games. I still had all the VHSs. And a couple of years ago, I'm like, I should do something with these. And then I'm like, I should put them on YouTube. Why not? And I mean, 95% of them, they're up. And, there's been a couple that the NHL's blocked and said, no, we don't want you showing that one. But
Yeah.
95% of them I was able to put up, and it's great being able to just go back and watch some of those old games. I can pull it up on my Roku TV and like watch it like I'm watching it live again. It was it's fun to do, and plenty of Pierre Turgeon there for anybody who's interested in watching him in his Blues days.
And look at you, just shy of 2,000 subscribers here on your channel.
That is all the
1.88.
NHL games. Yep.
1.88 thousand. Look at you.
Yep. That is
Look at
all
you.
those old games. That garnered a lot of attention when I started posting those. There was people
I'm sure.
on Reddit like, dude, follow this guy. He's posting games every day. So it was that's where all those come from. But yeah, there's a lot on there, and it's fun, man. Like I said, go back, watch those games. It's a great time. So talking about who didn't make this team. So the last guy that was in that final vote for the 3 spots, Barrett Jackman, did not make this team. I know a lot of people were pretty bummed about that. And I'll admit, I'm like, man, I need to add him because they need to have a 7th defenseman. But the votes were pretty one-sided that they wanted all 3 forwards in. So I said, you know what? Sorry, Barrett. You can be our trainer or maybe our assistant coach. But unfortunately, just no room for you. Barrett Jackman clearly played here. I believe it's the second most games. I don't have it pulled up, but I believe it's the second most games in franchise history. So want to give a little love to Barrett for not making this team, but you were right there, buddy, right there.
Yeah, unfortunately. And I still remember here, like, to this day, when I started going to Blues games, my dad had a large chip on his shoulder about Barrett Jackman and just some of his performances. And so, that skewed my opinion here quite a bit of him. But like when you go back and you actually watch, especially, younger Barrett Jackman and the impact that he had on this team, it's really hard to not love Barrett Jackman. He did have that dip in performance, and he did, he had some lapses here and there and down seasons, but when you look at his entire career, especially just with the Blues, before like he went to Nashville, he was, he was Jax, and I don't think that you can be able to really have a conversation here truly without him. So if we can be able to find a spot here, like in the video room here for him, or we can be able to find a spot, assistant to the assistant general manager, something like that here for him, he needs to be here on this list.
He's definitely I think he's your, maybe not captain, but alternate captain on the second team. If there's a Blues junior all-time team, he is he is number 1 right there. But I agree.
You start opening that up.
Oh yeah, that conversation's already been happening with people, and I'm like, you guys talk away. I've put all this together. This has been a lot to do. I'm not doing a second team, so. But yeah, that has definitely been a discussion, and he is, I honestly, 100%, he's your number 1 player, first guy named on that team, because he was right there here, almost even made the defenseman list. but lost out to the Plaguers, rightfully so, I think, just because of the impact they had on this franchise. But still, worth mentioning, Barrett Jackman right there, the last cut. He is the Herb Brooks of the 1960 Olympic team. He is the final cut for the all-time team.
Yeah, way too many good players. Way too many good ones.
Yep. So we've got a full list here of players that have been considered. We're actually going to run through them all very quickly. But first of all, I want to mention the 35-year team the Blues named back in 2003. I'm sorry, 2002. The players not included: Red Berenson, Joe Mullen, Scott Young, Wayne Babbage, Bob Gassoff, Rob Ramage, Glenn Hall, and then coach Joel Quenneville were all on that roster originally. They have been bumped for players since. So just wanted to give them a quick call out. Mike, I'm going to roll through this list as quickly as I can here.
Do it.
These are players that received votes from our panel that I wanted to give a quick call out to and say, hey, these guys were actually considered for the all-time team. So let's roll through them really quick. There was a couple people who were listed at different positions. So I did leave them out, so I don't name them twice. So if you hear one example, Jaden Schwartz, he got a vote at center. I'm only going to list him once here at left wing. So left wing that players considered for the all-time team: Jorgen Pedersen, Jeff Courtnall, Jaden Schwartz, Patrick Berglund, Gino Cavallini, Pavel Buchnevich, and Braden Shen. At center, Doug Gilmore, Jay McClement, Ivan Barbashev, Wayne Gretzky, Craig Conroy, Craig Janney, Doug Waite. Right wing, Gary Sabarin, Greg Pazlowski, Ryan Reeves, Tony McKegney, Nelson Emerson, Frank St. Marseille, Brad Boyes, Jordan Kyrou, Kelly Chase, Dallas Drake, Jamal Mayers. Left defense, Paul Cavallini, Jack Brownscheidel, Barrett Jackman, Al Arbor, Noel Picard, Carl Gunnarsson, Scott Stevens, and Jeff Finley. At right defense, Jeff Brown, Kevin Shattenkirk, Gary Roberts, Phil Housley, and Colton Parayko. At goalie, Brian Elliott, Jake Allen, Grant Fior, and Mike Liute. At coach, Ken Hitchcock, Brian Sutter, Scotty Bowman, and Jacques Demers. Final note on all that, and Mike, I'll let you comment on any of that here in a second, but there were 70 players overall considered for the 21 roster spots here. 709 total players have suited up for the Blues in franchise history. That's according to Hockey Reference. So that just goes to show you how elite this is. 709 total players have played for the Blues, and only 21 players made the roster. So that goes to show how elite these players were in their positions at the time. But Mike, your thoughts, any of the names I just listed over, any surprises, anyone you look at and say, oh, he probably should have been on there? Anyone stand out to you?
You have the fan favorites, and I think you go back to who is potentially, first team. You could be able to have a second team, and I think the Blues could be able to roster a second team that's very good. Very good. I would love to have seen a guy like Ryan Reeves be able to make it out. But again, that's more fan favorite, I think, than actual impact while he was here with the Blues. Brian Elliott, I think, is one that he could have made it. Jordan Binnington, obviously, he wins the Stanley Cup. There's no arguing against that here. And then Cujo, you only have two. But Brian Elliott, I think, could have made a really, really good case here. I love the fact that Buchnevich is already being considered. He's so impactful, incredibly impactful.
Well, that's what we said about him. We said we think when it's all said and done, if he stays a Blue and he's here for, let's say, 10 more years, he is probably your number one left wing all time on this team.
Yeah. Oh, I could see that, especially over, Dimitra and Tkachuk, I could be able to see him over that, at least be able to knock down at least one player, at least David Perron, but if he starts earning some more time here at center, he may have a tougher time here at that point. But no, I don't think there's really anybody else that really sticks out here. Again, you have a really good second team, which I think Patrick Berglund potentially ends up making. Jaden Schwartz, Shen here, of course. Kyrou, Kelly Chase, you get some of those big grinders, that play that blue collar Blues hockey. Colton Parayko, I'd be very interested to see where he ranks. Again, do you have more recency bias or do you have actual statistical influence?
Well, and
So
that's the funny
I'd
thing.
be
We
very
we
interested.
talked about Alexander Steen, did recency bias play against him?
Yeah.
That's one with Colton Parayko. If we had this list after the 2019 Cup win, I think fans are like, Colton Parayko is the best defenseman to ever play for the St. Louis Blues,
Yes.
So
Yep.
I think it's a completely different conversation at that point.
Yep, absolutely. And again, you can be able to start making a huge case. Brad Boyes, he absolutely should have been able to get some really good votes. I didn't have access, to be able to see what the vote count here was, but I'm sure Brad Boyes, that he was up there as well. You want to talk about a guy who was impactful while he was with the Blues. Brad Boyes was up there,
Yeah, he
absolutely up
was.
there. So
He was the reason you went to the rink during some of those teams, because some of those teams were
yes,
awful, and it was
awful.
just, oh, Brad Boyes at least will score a goal for us, and
Yeah.
it was fun. He was the first 40-goal scorer for the Blues since I think it was Kachuk,
Hmm.
maybe his second year here. So it was, yeah, he was another guy, and I look at a couple of these other names. It's funny to see the names that were, because again, we went off this 35-year team the Blues had originally. And you look at some of the names that happened before that that's on this list, Gary Sabrin, Greg Pazlowski, even a Wayne Gretzky, Gino Cavallini, like all these guys that were considered that didn't even make the 35-year team. I was
Hmm.
kind of hoping, I'm like, it'd be really fun to see one of those guys kind of leapfrog. Like they didn't make the 35-year team, but they made the, what are this is, 54-year team, like what changed in that time that made
Yeah.
made fans say that's where that guy belongs. So it was
Yep.
interesting to watch the votes and see some of these guys like Doug Gilmour get an actual chance to be able to step in and be a part of this team, even though they didn't make it before.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, does recency bias with Kelly Chase being on the air? If that's a couple of years ago, does Kelly Chase end up making his way? But now that he's
Yeah,
been off the air here for a little while, he's kind of out of sight, out of mind.
right.
Does Kelly Chase make it?
Yep. So I just, this is a fun little stat that I found. I'm sure you saw this and were like, what the hell? Why does this matter? But just doing the research I did for this show, I had to call this one out. 3 players with the lowest amount of playing time. So the lowest amount of playing time that have played for the Blues in history. All 3 players have only had 5 minutes, according to Hockey Reference. Those 3 players are actually very recent. Colin Fraser,
Oh
he had
man.
1 game played. Rory Fitzpatrick, who was a defenseman, he played 3 games and somehow only amassed 5 minutes. I'm guessing it was an 11-7 scenario
Yeah.
where it was maybe he was a 7th defenseman and they just throw him out there late in the game or something. And then Derek Bakar, who was a Blues prospect or in the early 2000s, he had 1 game played. So all 3 of those guys only 5 minutes. But hey, they're Blues. They're enshrined in Blues history. Like, that's something I've always said, man. If I could just somehow become an emergency backup defenseman and just
Yes.
step on the ice for 10 seconds, I am automatically in Blues history. That's all that
Yes.
matters.
Yep. They made the 5 minutes. It's 5 minutes more than I've ever made it. So hey, hats
Exactly.
off to them.
That's right. So again, real quick, the all-time team, as it is final now, your first line, Keith Kachuk, Bernie Fedorko, and Brett Hall. Second line, Pavel Demitra, Ryan O'Reilly, and Vladimir Tarasenko. Third line, David Perron, Adam Oates, and David Backus. And your fourth line, which tell me you don't want to face this fourth line, Brian Sutter, Gary Unger, and TJ Oshie. That might be a line that best that 2019 team.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And you listed off, like, that top 6, and I'm just over here shaking my head like, can you imagine if those guys actually played together?
Oof.
Holy smokes.
I know it's pretty incredible. Your defense, I'll say this again. I love how this one shook out because it actually shook out by the time like these guys
Yes.
actually played together. So Chris Pronger and Al McInnes is your top pairing. Second pairing, Jay Bomeister and Alex Petrangelo. Third pairing, Barkley and Bob Plager. So love seeing that.
Absolutely.
It doesn't get better than that. Like
No.
when we were doing those reveal shows, I'm like, okay, that played out exactly how it was supposed to.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. I have no qualms about any of those guys, any of those pairings, anything. Nope, we're good.
Yep. And I'll agree. Same thing with the goalies here. Curtis Joseph, Jordan Binnington.
Yeah.
I think those two are right where they should be. And, you can make a case for Mike Liut, all-time wins leader for the Blues. And then, of course, Glenn Hall, Grant Fuhr. You can make cases for those guys, but I think it ended up the way it should be. Joseph and
Yep.
Binnington, 1-2 punch.
Yep, absolutely.
And last week we had Craig Berube announced as the head coach. What your thoughts real quick on that one? Do you think I said it all last week. I love it. I don't think there's anyone you know when you can talk about Stanley Cup wins for anybody, but when it comes to coaching, I think Stanley Cup wins is the barometer, and he's the only one
Yes.
that's won a cup here in St. Louis.
Yeah, you can talk about how impactful a guy, say, like Hitchcock was. I mean, he really cemented his time here in St. Louis. But Berube, I think, is the absolute right choice. He's the only one who ended up winning the Stanley Cup here in the Blues history. But he's so good tactically speaking. He makes those adjustments, whether it's before or during the game here. I love his style of play, but he's a no nonsense guy. But he's not so much that he just gets under your skin here, like a couple of other coaches here, like in the past, where it just has such a negative impact. So I absolutely love the choice.
Yep, I agree with that. And of course, today we revealed our extras in Alexander Steen, Brendan Shanahan, and Pierre Turgeon. So I want to announce real quick a quick thank you and just an absolute. My heart goes out to you. You guys were great. The panel that we had here from Let's Go Blues Radio, of course, all of us were involved. Bill Day, Kurt Price, Austin Lynch, and myself. Other podcasters we had included Stephen Ground from Two Guys, One Cup, and Jason Martin from Blues Hockey Podcast. We had two media members join us in Lou Korak from NHL.com and the Hockey News, and Jeremy Rutherford from The Athletic. And then, of course, our fans that we had included Vanessa Graff, Ken Morris, and Dr. Nighthawk. That is not her real name, Mike, but that is what she goes by on social media. So we let her keep that moniker.
She should just change that. Like, just be called Dr. Nighthawk.
Agreed.
Just go by
100%. So, Mike, you are not included on this panel. You were actually going to be my my backup.
I was the extra.
Korak or Rutherford said no, but
Yeah.
it was funny because when I made this list of like all these people that I'm going to invite, I was like, I want to have 11. I want to have an odd number. And I started listing them out, and I listed out like 10 or 15 more people. And I was like, these are my backups in case, this podcaster can't do it. I'll ask this podcaster. This fan can't do it. I'll get this fan. All the first people I asked all said yes. Every single one of them. And I'm like, oh, and like most of them were like, oh, this is awesome. I'm so excited to be a part of this. And so it's funny because like me and you, we had an interview earlier this summer, and I even like wanted to on air apologize to you. Like, sorry I didn't include you in this, but I swear you were my next choice.
It's all right. I'll take it up with Steven here, off camera.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. But no, I'm happy you were able to join us for this because I know you've got some deep, deep blues knowledge. So getting you to come on and talk about these three extras, not just one position, but three guys that obviously were impactful for the Blues. I'm happy you're able to join us. And again, want to thank you, want to thank the panel for all the work that went into this. And thank you very much for coming on and revealing these last three spots with us.
Loved it. Hey, again, thanks so much here for having me.
Yeah, and again, I know we talked about it at the top of the show, but as we close up here, I do want to go ahead and give you a moment to go ahead and tell people where they can find your work, how they can interact with you on social media, and anything else you want to plug away.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm most active here on Twitter, X, whatever you want to consider it here now. You can be able to find my Linktree link that's there here as well. So if you want to be able to find all the other different platforms that I may be on, I'm trying to be able to be more active on Instagram. So if you want to be able to follow me here, there, it's M_Meyer_3. For whatever reason, somebody had M_Meyer3. So, we went ahead and just adjusted that just a smidge. So those are probably my two most active ones. And then, of course, go take a look here, not only at my content, but, all the guys, whether you're looking here for Blues content or just NHL content, draft, whatever, take a look here at us at the Hockey Writers.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you for joining us, and we'll have you on throughout the season as well. I know you're going to be. Did you officially get credentialed again this year?
Oh yeah, we'll be back, baby.
Very good, very good. So yeah, we'll have you on this year. We'll bring you on for Blues news, anything going on Blues. We'll definitely have you back on. Always love having you on, Mike. Thank you very much for joining the show.
Love it.
All right. Well, we are going to close up shop here, folks. Support for Let's Go Blues Radio is brought to you in part by ID Life, the world's only truly personalized vitamin platform based on a health assessment of your DNA. Visit rockinthatidlife.com for more information. That's rockinthatidlife.com and get 10% off by emailing Dustin at rockinthatidlife@gmail.com and tell him Let's Go Blues Radio sent you. And by Mike Burgoyne from Rio Brokerage Realty. Visit strikewithmike.com today for all of your home buying and selling needs. That's strikewithmike.com. And by Center Ice Brewery, St. Louis's tasty hockey-themed beer. Check out your local beer vendors for availability. That's Center Ice Brewery beer. Please drink responsibly. That will wrap up episode 19 of season 13 of the original St. Louis Blues Hockey Podcast, Let's Go Blues Radio. Thanks for listening, and thanks again to everybody who helped us out with this panel, including you, the fans, and the listeners who voted on all of our Twitter panels. It has been awesome, and it's been a blast. And hey, now that we're done, season's almost here, folks. Here we go. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we've enjoyed bringing it to you. For Mike Meyer of the HockeyWriters.com, as well as the absent Bill Day, Kirk Price, and producer Austin, I'm Jeff Ponder, and this was Let's Go Blues Radio. Until next time, everyone, let's go Blues. Mike, give me something. Let's go Blues. Let's go City. Give me something.
Oh, let's go Blues, baby.
Let's do it.
Sit, Ubu, sit. Good dog.
You thought I was going to say, son of a bitch, didn't you?